It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody. Welcome in. My name is Chris, and this is a show about things and stuff. And hello there, yacht possums. Oh, I see you out there jogging. I see you mowing the lawn. I see you picking the kids up from school. Hey, kids, what's up? Thank you so much to all of you for listening. It's a pleasure to be back in your ear holes, in the groove, with our second of 4 weeks on the main show in July. 2 shows per week, Tuesdays and Fridays, all leading up to August 3rd, big date in the Possum universe this year. We are shifting that date back to an everyday calendar. Definitely starting to feel it. Training camps in a couple of weeks. A new NFL season upon us. Very cool. Very fun. And by golly, as of this weekend, I am, I'd say 99% done with my part of the Almanac, the writing, basically done, the ranks, the appendices, all that stuff. It is now kind of being looked at by some friends to see if there are kind of any glaring, obvious mistakes. The art is still getting finalized, but I have seen what the art is going to look like, and it's really awesome. I think you're going to get a huge chuckle. I'm working with a new illustrator, and he's been doing a fantastic job. I can finally take a deep breath and feel good. Once more, I have won my race with the devil, and the Almanac will, in fact, be out on that same date, August 3rd, 3 weeks from yesterday. That'll be Almanac Day. I can't wait for you to finally be able to read it. I've been writing it for a long time. I think you'll get a good chuckle, hopefully a fair bit of football insight out of it. You can pre-order right now. You are certainly under no obligation. I'm very lucky to have you listening. I appreciate you for that. If you'd like to pre-order the Almanac, you can, harrisfootball.com. Today, we're talking about some NFC East teams. How about reading a profile from an NFC East team? We probably won't talk that much on the show about Jayden Daniels because I'll just say I think he's almost like a perfect example of someone, unless he's hurt, we're going to try to resist temptation to change our rank on him, our opinion on him. I'm borderline positive the news on Jayden Daniels will be nothing but glowing. He's healthy. He looks great. Amazing. So the temptation will be, we had him QB3 last year. Why are we not elevating him? Have you heard what the beat reporters have said? He hasn't thrown an incompletion in 3 days worth of drills. Exactly why we do these July shows, to weed out the irrational exuberance and not change based on positive reports. So instead of talking about him later, which I don't know if we're going to do, but I tend to think we're not, how about I read you Daniels' 2026 profile now? It goes something like this. Jayden Daniels' second pass of the 2025 season should have been picked. A deep out to Deebo Samuel. The route was jumped by not very good corner Cordell Flott, and every commander's heart was in their throat. But Daniels survived that wobbly beginning, played it fairly conservative thereafter in a sleepy 21-6 win week 1 over the Giants, and blew his only real chance to make a big play by overthrowing wide-open Terry McLaurin in the second quarter. Folks who'd selected Daniels as high as QB3 in their fantasy draft sighed. Daniels rushed for 68 yards, including 2 option keepers and 2 QB draws. A modest beginning, but no disaster. The disaster came 4 days later. On a Thursday night in Green Bay, after 3 quarters in which Washington was stuck on 3 points and about 100 total scrimmage yards, on the first play of the fourth, Daniels was flushed left by Micah Parsons, tried to scramble, and took a helmet shot from Javon Bullard on his knee. Daniels stayed in that game, but missed the next 2. Week 5 was a win against the Chargers, but Daniels wore a chunky knee brace and did not wow. Week 6, he threw 3 touchdowns and led a stirring comeback, but subsequently blew the game by fumbling with 3 minutes left. Week 7, he lasted barely more than a half before a sack fumble forced him to leave with an injured hamstring, whereupon he missed Week 8. Then in Week 9, he was trailing 38-7 in the fourth quarter against the Seahawks and suffered a gruesome dislocated elbow trying to run in a touchdown from the 5. He attempted a Week 14 comeback in Minnesota, a 31-0 loss, and lasted partway through the third before throwing a red zone pick and re-injuring his elbow trying to run down the interceptor. For a skinny running quarterback, it was the sum of all fears. What Daniels put on tape as a second-year player was awful. We just have to hope it's all fruit from the poisonous tree. In a best case, the Week 2 knee injury removed his top gear and made him easier to defend from sideline to sideline, which allowed defenses to tee off against what turned out to be a poor offensive line. In a worst case, the angst and agita folks had about Daniels before the 24 draft proved correct. He's Bobby Three Sticks. I don't think so. Or rather, I hope not. I still have visions of Daniels serene in the pocket, firing darts to deep targets in his rookie year. Can you fake that? I admit I can't promise Daniels is as good as we all believed when he led Washington to the NFC title game as a rookie. Cliff Kingsbury's gone from DC. The team is threatening to put Daniels under center more. The receiving core beyond McLaurin is at best untested. And that bad offensive line is mostly unchanged. A healthy Jayden Daniels theoretically has that tantalizing combo of elite running and deep ball accuracy, so if you're ready to walk on the wild side, give him another try in 26. But the floor is obviously lower than we hoped. So that's the end of that profile, but then it just so happens that's another one where you get a Cousin Josh Says. And here's what Cousin Josh says about Daniels. I can't do the voice. I just got to read it in my voice. I'm terrified. At the risk of sounding like a douche, he did say that. Drafting Jayden Daniels this year feels almost exactly like any time I order a martini outside the U.S. Their vermouth could be sitting at room temperature. I have no idea what kind of garnish I'm getting. Are they shaking it? Are they stirring it? What kind of water are they using to make their cubes? The range of outcomes is just wild. One time, I didn't know the language, and I got a peppertini, a martini soaked with banana peppers. Get out of here with that. So my problem with Daniels, if I draft him, I don't know whether I'll be getting a nice, mellow buzz I'll enjoy all evening, or if I'll immediately need to wash the taste away with goldfish crackers. You can't fake Cousin Josh, truly. I'm a fiction writer. I can't do his voice. So then there are film grades in the Almanac for Daniels, because there are film grades in the Almanac for every non-rookie that I wrote a profile for. And I give you kind of a little color coding in there to let you know what grades changed from the previous year. I dropped Daniels' vision grade down to a B. His running grade stayed strong, though, he's an obvious A+, as long as he's healthy. He's my QB 7, because you're just trying to balance it out. Last year was scary. We certainly could pick right back up where 2024 ended as long as he stays healthy. But yeah, I'm not sure enough about it to feel exactly the same way, to extend myself in a draft to get him. He's probably either coming to me when, I'm ready to pick a quarterback, or I'm passing by on that risk. But yeah, if you'd like to check out the Almanac, pre-order for delivery in just 20 days. harrisfootball.com.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, our division-by-division preview of NFL training camps and the stories we will and won't allow our opinions to change over. It continues with a look at the teams of the NFC East. Of course, that means Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, and Giants. Our goal is to be flexible in cases where we understand something could materially change, and then not be flexible in our ranks and opinions when the true nonsense starts about players that we aren't going to believe anything about unless they're injured. To help us keep our eyes on that particular prize, Jake Ciely of The Athletic will join the show. I do think you'll have a fun time listening, and I really do thank you again so much for listening today. We are sponsored again this season by Blue Land. I'm going to talk about laundry here because I use nothing but Blue Land laundry tablets in my washing machine, and I haven't thrown out a plastic bottle of laundry detergent in 3+ years. But I could just as easily be talking about hand soap, dishwasher tablets, toilet bowl cleaner, surface cleaner, glass cleaner. If you've ever felt weird and bad about so many plastic bottles that you throw away, you know it's horrible for the planet, this is such an easy change to make. And yes, that certainly includes the laundry tablets, 100% plastic-free, microplastic-free, made without dyes and harsh chemicals, hypoallergenic, safe for sensitive skin, including kids. It's just simple. When you run out of tablets, they send you more. No plastic involved at all. And Blue Land is a certified B Corp and Leaping Bunny cruelty-free certified. Their formulas are EPA Safer Choice certified, and many products have earned Cradle to Cradle's Gold Material Health Certificate. Make the switch today and get 15% off your first order at blueland.com/Harris. Something really easy, and it does make a difference. BLUELAND.com/Harris. Blueland.com/Harris.
Today's guest.
She spotted the ocean, then changed our plans. Why are we going so far away? Stomach is growling, calves are exposed, scarf it went flying, this date really blows. Jeans in the ocean.
Jeans in the ocean, of course, jeans in the ocean. And in fact, something you don't know that Jake knows is that as the Zoom call got started and I was waiting for Jake to show up, what was I doing, Jake?
You were singing Jeans in the Ocean. I have to, for everybody out there that doesn't know, Chris actually has a really good singing voice, and I wasn't sure if he was playing it as a joke of like hold music for me, or if that was really him in the background. So I was trying to figure it out, and then I know, like, you could kind of tell when you're listening to an acoustic guitar, and then I'm like, oh my God, he's actually playing it.
I was serenading Jake as he joined the show. Was playing a little whatever that is, 30-year-old song, but we love your walk-up song. It is quite
real
good.
Quick to jump in. Sorry, not to cut you straight off the top, but here there was somebody on Blue Sky who responded to Andy Barron's, a good friend of yours and mine, and said that Lee Cronin's Mitch McConnell, that's what Andy said, looks pretty good. And somebody responded and said, who besides All In Kid would wear blue jeans in a hospital bed? And I was like, how do you not tag Chris on that?
I did not see that. I was not tagged. Oh, poor Turtle Mitch. I hope the soup is good. All right, brother. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'm glad I could sing you a little tune as we came in. Got the guitar out at 7 a.m. or whatever it is. You are, of course, still writing for The Athletic. All of our good friends there. And so folks can check out all your work as that begins to compile there at The Athletic. You also you were on hiatus for a couple months, but you're back with the All In Speedrun podcast. Yes. So you get the breakneck pace of the speed run back already. I think you're not all the way back pacing wise, nor am I, but like you're doing some shows in July and then it's all aboard in August.
Yep, that's how it goes. Basically, 1, maybe 2 a week, depending in August, and then full on board 2, possibly 3 a week in the season, depending on how things break out this year. But yeah, I always appreciate you mentioning that.
All right, All In Speedrun. Just give it a nice little subscribe. It's a quick burst of a listen, and we love it. And you are here. You're a longtime recipient of the fascist email. You are here to heed the rules of all the underlines and all the bolds and all the entreaties to stick to training camp, because we are previewing training camp. And my goal is to come up with 8 shows and a list of things and players that we will be willing to change our opinions on based on what beat reporters say, and then a much larger list of players that we're not going to listen to the fluff. Unless they're hurt, they're staying where they are in our ranks. And of course, your ranks are different from my ranks, so it's not like we're trying to convince one another that we're right or we're wrong. We're mostly just saying whatever our opinions are right now, they are fully baked. And I don't know if you know how we came up with which division you're going to do, but it's because on the Yacht Club show yesterday, I asked Andy, your colleague at The Athletic, as it were, I said, all right, well, Jake's coming on the main show tomorrow. What division should he do? And he goes, NFC East. And I go, okay, is that because he's kind of a Giants fan, even though he's trying to make himself not through his own sanity, trying to make himself not be a Giants fan? And he said, no, it's because he has some wild takes on the Commanders. I was like, oh, okay.
Really? I actually would have guessed the same thing you did.
Right. I think he might have been kidding, but I'm not smart enough to get his joke. So we are doing the NFC East teams. So let's start it out with the Eagles, because they have one obvious major upheaval in their offense. It's A.J. Brown getting traded to the Patriots. That is a big deal. And Devontae Smith, whatever you and I have done with Devontae Smith in our ranks, he's 120 pounds and his knee hurts, but he's, unless his knee hurts in August, he's probably staying where he's staying. The question is, what can we learn in training camp about everybody else? And the main person of everybody else is probably the rookie, Makai Lemon. I wonder, you ranked him where you ranked him, I ranked him where I ranked him. But I wonder if you will be susceptible to hype, because I'm assuming he's a first-round rookie receiver. He'll probably look great in the uniform. He'll probably look great in drills. He'll probably look great in an exhibition game. Do you have a little bit of sensitivity to the idea that he has an awesome August? Can he rise a little bit in your ranks with an awesome August?
So I'm actually going the other direction, because I try not to do what we always try not to do and fall into confirmation bias, but I have a higher opinion seemingly than most of Makai Lemon and the fit in this offense under Sean Mannion. So my effect of the offseason would be actually to move him down my ranks. I think that if we see that this injury and the fact that he's already missed some time continues to linger, or that plays into the fact that, hey, you know what? It doesn't sound like he's going to be on the field all the time in 2 wide sets, and it's maybe a lot of slot like we hear from Omar Cooper with the Jets, and that's going to be an effect of his share for the entire offense. Or Mannion's offense is taking Hurts more time than we thought. Like, there's a lot of factors in here where I actually have him. You said where we ranked them. I have him at 31. I have him behind the other two, but they are back to back, because I do think Lemon and Hurts and the fit in the Mannion offense can work. So I'm saying, I want to give my full spiel on that, because I know that's not what you're looking for, but I'm presenting that to say, as you asked, can I move him up? I actually think I'm kind of almost as high as I can get on him, because I believe. So if we see all the things just aren't working, and there's a lot of reporters saying, you know what, it might be a slow start. You know what, it might be second half of the season before they trust him in 2 wide. The connection isn't there. Hurts, for as good as he's been over the middle, and we know how limited he throws over the little, it's just not clicking like we thought. Then I'm going to start sliding him back. I'm going to start behind some other number 2s on other teams, behind some vets, because I think, like I said, I kind of feel like I'm starting at the top, and my only room is to come down on him.
So you're maxed out, and I don't really look at ADP. We're not far off from each other. I have him, I think, 34 among receivers.
Okay.
Well, I guess that's PPR. I'm 40 standard, so maybe not that far off. 34 PPR, under the theory, as you say, that however much middle of the field there might wind up being, might go to the Amon-Ra St. Brown clone we're sold as. He's not probably an Amon-Ra St. Brown clone. And I'm kind of, as you're talking, I was interrogating my own feeling about the PPR rank being a bit higher, being closer to where your rank is. And is there anything that they could do in August that would convince me, they've unlocked Jalen Hurts throwing over the middle, and I now, really feel convicted that 34 is a great spot for him? Probably not. I don't think you can really believe that until you see a game. So maybe I agree with you. Maybe it's worth paying a little bit of attention just to how much he's on the field, when beat reporters look at formations and stuff. And when we, if we get the starters at all in exhibition games, even though that's always such a scary game to play, but it's worth saying, okay, is it a lot of Dontavian Wicks and 2 receiver sets? I mean, they don't run a lot of 2 receiver sets. They're going to run 3 a lot, but
right.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think probably he's maxed out, at least in full PPR for me. It puts him like in an 8th round kind of consideration for me in standard, like a 7th round. And, last week we said this a couple of times. For a young player, we said this with Jordan Tyson too. For a young receiver who, isn't doing the Marvin Harrison, isn't getting drafted at the beginning of the 2nd round. If you're talking about 7th round, if you're talking about 8th round, probably neither you nor I can get mad at somebody for saying, well, you know what? I want to make sure I get him, so I'm going to take him in the 6th round or whatever. Like, you're not going to blow your draft. We screw up 6th round picks all the time. Like, it isn't going to completely mess you up to like take the shot on him as your, number 3 wide receiver, for example. So I guess it's a case where maybe some camp exuberance, we're probably not going to raise him any, but we're going to feel more comfortable, you and I, where we have him, and we're going to be okay if people reach a little.
Exactly. I think that's a really good way to put it. And it's funny that I was doing another podcast or another one. They asked, what are some of your draft tips? And I think what you just said is that everybody's like, oh, you don't want to go too crazy and, buy all the hype and all that type of stuff. But then at the same time, let's remember we have a multitude of picks between our 2 rounds. Like if you're looking at it, hey, I want to take them the 6th to make sure that nobody snags it in the 7th. If that's going to break your draft, you did a lot of other things wrong already.
Yeah. That in and of itself isn't going to break your draft because like if you look at the 6th round in ADP from last year or the year before, more than half the picks blew. It's just the way it is.
Exactly.
It's very difficult to know. I don't have too many other specific Eagles topics for you, other than to say, if we gathered you and I on this show, maybe not talking about the Eagles, but like last year, if we had gotten together to list the offenses we trusted. I'm always trying to make situation be the smallest part of why I like a player because situations just change. Offenses change so much from year to year. So we're trying to make that list of teams that we really super trust. That's like a circle of trust that's small each summer. But I think we probably both would have put the Eagles in it coming off a Super Bowl, coming off Barkley's insane season, coming off Hurts being Super Bowl MVP and having 2 great receivers. And like that would have been one of the offenses we trusted. And clearly, by the end of the year, the Eagles didn't even trust it. They poop canned the offensive coordinator. They're out on kind of everything, trying to redo the offense. So we're not going to put the Eagles' offense in our circle of trust right now. No A.J. Brown, and like the offensive line's a bigger question. And I think So my question, I'm sorry, it's a long wind-up, but is there anything... I think the answer is obviously no. I'm asking you a leading question, but like, can you get your headspace back to the point where they enter that, whatever it is, 3-team, 5-team circle of trust by the end of training camp?
Man, it's pretty much no, because
I agree.
It's tough it's tough to say, like, okay, Sean Mannion's offense is so much better. There's more play action. There's more over the middle. There's blah, blah, blah. Like that's all great until you see it actually work in game action. And that's coming from somebody who's gone on arguments about the hate that Hurts gets for not throwing over the middle. So that's coming from somebody that's very much in support of this can work. But it's no pads, it's pads and practices, it's preseason. Like, I just don't know that we're going to get a definitive answer to say, you know what? Yeah, I can say it'll be better than last year, similar to the Commanders, which we'll talk about later, when you don't have somebody that has a one trick that doesn't seem to work anymore. But at the same time, like, I don't think it's going to be enough to say, oh, they're definitively inside the top 5. I don't think I can get there.
I go to the gym just about every day, and I know the impediments to the discipline you need to have to keep going to the gym. That's why I use the Fitbod app, and I recommend it to all my friends. I really do. Why do people stop with their fitness routines? Sometimes you get bored. Sometimes you get frustrated with a plateau. Fitbod can help with both of these. The app creates a personalized workout routine based on what you tell it. Your goals, your current fitness level, and you don't need to be in great shape to get started, and your available equipment, if any. So you get a good routine, and then Fitbod tracks your progress and always mixes things up. You won't get bored, and you'll get enough variation you usually won't plateau. My favorite part If you have any questions about how to do an exercise, they have like more than 1,000 videos. There will be a video for it. I use that regularly. This summer, push your progress and see what you're really capable of. Try the Fitbod app for free for 7 days at fitbod.me/Harris. And then when you subscribe, get 25% off. fitbod.me/Harris. This can really help. I love it. fitbod.me/Harris. We are back with Jake, and we're talking about the training camps for teams of the NFC East, and we're on to the Dallas Cowboys, who have, it just seems like every year it's kind of the same story with the Cowboys, like, oh, well, yeah, a lot of good skill guys. There's no real competition for anything we care about for fantasy. I guess, I don't want to linger too long on the possibility George Pickens is going to hold out. He signed his tag. He says he's not going to. He showed up to everything. As much as I think he's a knucklehead, and he obviously wants a contract beyond this year, but just seems like he's going to play out the season. I guess I probably should ask it this way, because I'm just imposing my view on you. Like if he winds up changing his mind, Pickens, and holding in, we would clearly have to react. What would you do if that were the case? I don't think it's what you expect, correct? If he did unexpectedly, do you dip him pretty far?
It wouldn't be far, but it would enough to knock him out of the tier I have him in. I have him at the back end wide receiver ones with the Nico Collins, his teammate, and others like that. I think the hold-in would be enough to say, you know what, I'll drop him down to the T. Higgins, the 16s, 15s, just to... It's a little bit more risk baked in, and it's not a ton. I'm with you. I don't expect it to happen, but if it did, and I always go back to referencing, I did an interview with Mike Tomlin years and years and years ago, and this was Le'Veon Bell missing the beginning of the season, and I asked him if he was concerned, and the quote that I always love to reference from him is that Tomlin said there's a difference between, he said, I know every player is going to show up in shape. Obviously, that's not 100% true, but his point behind it is I know they're all going to show up in shape. He's like, there's a difference between training shape and in-game shape. So to miss those reps, we've seen it from other players before, does take a little bit of effect for the first few games. So it's enough to say, you know what, if I have to get somebody like Pickens and he's off to a slow start and the first 2 games aren't Pickens, it's enough to knock him down a tier, but not, I wouldn't go much further than that. We got first year, this first year with the team last year came in and clicked immediately. So I'm not too concerned for the entire season.
Yeah. And plus we don't really expect it. The fact is there's not that much that we're going to learn in training camp with the Cowboys unless it's a bunch of injuries or a bunch of negative stuff they just can't keep from leaking out. It shocks me that it's worked out this way with Pickens because I just think it's very, very bad policy to be playing under a 1-year deal when you're a veteran receiver. I know he's making a lot of money this year, but if I was his agent, I would forbid this. I would say, sorry, man, you're going out there with a full deal, or you're not going out there. That you need to make it hurt. And he's being agreeable, and I guess I don't know if I admire it so much. He's certainly taking what seems like a team first attitude for a player who, let's just say, how many years has he been in the league? 4 years. I wouldn't have put George Pickens high on the list of team first players.
Not before this. I agree with you there.
Yeah. So, given that, you think about 365 days ago and the questions about that backfield, everyone was on short money. Miles Sanders had as good a chance as Javonte Williams to be the starting running back. They had 2 rookie running backs that people were talking up. You want to talk about training camp hype last year? I heard about Jayden Blue a lot in training camp last year, and he wound up not doing anything. So, Javonte is locked in. He gets his new contract. He now is making real money. This probably seems like, everybody knows the Cowboys are the loudest team in the league. No question about it. Any news gets magnified with the Cowboys. Do you view this just as a training camp where you're sort of as a listener who's listening right now, your goal should be just every time you see a hype video about Dak Prescott, every time you see how CeeDee Lamb is perfect now, all that stuff, just click, just move along?
I was going to say, change your algorithm so you can just not see them anymore, just because, like you said, it's just going to be hype. And I'm sure there'll be some plays will be like, oh, it's Jayden Blue time. We told you last year. Had that work out. And then Malik Davis ended up being the backup for the entire year. And somebody will talk up Phil Moffitt at some point after he breaks a tackle. So I think this is more of a collection of parts that, it would be tough for me to sit here at the end of the preseason and be like, you know what, blank is definitively the guy to go to if something were to happen to Javonte Williams. I just don't think we're going to get that answer.
Yeah. And would it ever just be one guy? Malik Davis looked fine last year. I wrote Davis a profile for the Almanac. He's in the top 80 running backs on my ranks, but it's low. He's not draftable. He's not really handcuffable. But just, given that Phil Maffa didn't play, and given that Jayden Blue played very occasionally and didn't look very good when he did, I think I'll say Malik Davis, but not as a handcuff. Agreed. Yeah, it's a training camp. Probably we're just best off unless there's negative stuff, unless there's injuries. We're gonna do our best not to react. And as such, let's move on to the Washington Commanders. I actually read. I read Jayden Daniels' profile, since Daniels is the only one we're kind of not gonna talk about, because the whole thing is either gonna sink or swim on Daniels, and I guess I will ask about Daniels, just to say my general message on him at the top of the show was, well, he's my QB7 and he might be your QB something else, but probably training camp and, the glowing conversation about the kumbaya, everybody singing about the new offensive coordinator and the new system and all that stuff probably shouldn't, we'll talk about how it affects other stuff, but it probably shouldn't change the way you're ranking Jayden Daniels, because I presume your rank of Jayden Daniels is fairly optimistic, saying, well, he was hurt last year.
And that's all it comes down to for me. I am higher. I'm a QB4, and it just really comes down to...
I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And it's okay, yeah, David Blau and all that type of stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more at some point, or just, the fact, like you said, everything's supposed to be better. I made the joke earlier that Cliff Kingsbury, one-trick pony, and it works for about half a season, and then everybody's like, oh, wait, it's just Cliff Kingsbury. Why are we trying to play anything different against him? And then it stops working. And you look at Blau, and we can have... But it all comes down to, as you said, we can go through that, and the same thing with Mannion with the Eagles, and be like, oh, it should be better, No, it just comes down to... I don't even need Jayden Daniels to be an elite passer. It's just how many quarterbacks have 1,000-yard rushing upside. And do I think he gets there? Probably not, even with 17 games. It's just pick your poison. If you want to stay away from him because you're afraid of the injury risk, sure, I'm just not going to play that game. I'm not saying you are by having him so significantly. You're 3 spots lower than me. What are you still saying? Pretty much the same thing. It just comes down to the biggest takeaway I have on Daniels, and then we can just move on from him, Chris, is that it's so funny that last year people were drafting him definitively as top 3, saying he has a chance to be the number 1 quarterback. And now the injury season happens. And everybody's like, I don't want him anymore. Let's move him all the way down to 9 or 8 or something like that. And so it really comes down to, if he's healthy, he's still one of the few quarterbacks that could finish as number 1.
Yes, and if I'm probably taking the position that I'm a little more concerned about him staying healthy. I got the RG3 thing invoked in my head. I can see a range of outcomes that I didn't want to believe was possible going into last year, which probably explains my rank. For the purposes of right now, I agree, we're not really that far off, but you're a little more willing to reach for him than I am, and I respect it, and of course completely understand it. The point being, I hope he's still your QB4 coming out of training camp. I hope he's still my QB7. I don't want to succumb to the hype or the oh, it's a mess. Oh boy, they can't tie their shoes. No, it's gonna all be we should probably be holding our water on Jayden Daniels, but the backfield, the running backs, I feel like that. I don't know. I'll ask it. Do you feel like that could be a case where there are those forking paths story-wise, where we could hear a bunch of different possibilities that we don't know yet, and it could significantly change where we have those running backs slotted?
This is one of the ones where I do think we could. As of right now, I have them, 2 of them, in the fringe RB3 conversation, that being White and Krosky Merritt. But I think there are forking paths here. I think that's just really going to come down to, if it was a non-change in offensive style and coach, then sure, we could make, a point to a little bit for what happens last year, because we have that. But as Blau's taken over, a draft, I don't think a lot of Allen, but that's not relevant here, honestly. Even though I don't have the biggest opinion of Allen, what if they see what a lot in the fit in the offense? Again, I don't necessarily see it, but Rachaad White's also top 3 in receptions over the past 3 seasons for running backs. What if they're like, you know what? Yeah, he's pretty kind of inefficient at times running the ball, but he just fits somebody that we can keep on there for most all 3 downs, and he's getting 60% of the work. And so like, or you know what? Rachaad White is the inefficient running back we saw with the Buccaneers, and let's give Krosky Merritt more of a chance after essentially, I say this all the time. Ben Standig last year at the beginning, because you remember this, as soon as they made that trade last year, it was like Krosky Merritt to the moon. And Ben Standig, who I respect a lot, came out and said, chill out, because this is somebody who's played 1 game in 2 seasons, and the Commanders are going to save him for the second half of the year, which they kind of did. But at the same time, Krosky Merritt was just okay. He wasn't to the moon by any stretch of the imagination. I just think there's a lot of forking paths, as you said, is the best way to put it, that we could find out something by end of August that says, you know what, now we do know. This is everything's pointing to multiple beat reporters, Blau's saying it, the team's saying it, and blank is going to be the lead. And I do think in that case, we would have to move, at least me, move somebody up at least into the fringe RB2 conversation when I have them down in the mid to late 30s.
Yeah, I agree. This is one that we're going to have to pay attention to pretty regularly, and we're probably going to do that thing where we're reading too much into every little word, and we might get misled. But I think we have to. It isn't what I love doing. I don't love parsing, verb tense or whatever when an offensive coordinator talks. But I do think it will behoove us to be flexible in this regard. Let me ask you, like, what does that? I think part of what you said there is exactly right, and it crystallized it for me a little bit. It really comes down to you probably don't want to overcommit on anybody here. Mm-hmm. Among Rachaad White, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, Kaytron Allen, the rookie, because I think we suspect none of them are great. And in the end,
yes,
it's, we don't know whether it's an elite environment offensively. I'm not considering the Commanders inside my super small offensive circle of trust. They can prove it to me during the season, but I'm not going to do it right now. And given that I don't think it's a perfect offense, and given that I don't think any of these running backs are great, there can be a winner. The offensive coordinator can say, listen, Rachaad White came in and earned this job. There can be a winner. I just don't want to then put Rachaad White RB23, because I've seen people do that, and it doesn't usually work out very well for you if you do that with Rachaad White. Like, sure, maybe the Commanders get fooled by him for a little bit, but we are not going to get fooled.
No, and it honestly reminds me kind of like the Browns 2-3 years ago in consecutive seasons, which, by the way, Jerome Ford is also on this team as of today. is that Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb of and then even mixing in like Deonta Foreman was still around at some point, Pierre Strong. It's just kind of like, at the end of the day, we didn't want any of them. It's just like, oh, look, blank had 18 points this week. Let's go chase him. And then it's like, well, that was 1 game, and 4 weeks later, we still haven't seen another. So I kind of am feeling like that's where we might be headed, even if the offense is a quality offense, unless somebody clearly breaks free. And like you said, it would have to be somebody that would move up, but probably would not. That's why I said fringe RB2. In my mind, I was thinking more of like the 28-ish range, where it's like, okay, Tony Pollard or running back from the Commanders. Like, that's kind of where my thinking would be.
Yeah, I have White ahead of JCM. I thought JCM's tape was freaking horrible. I thought he was pretty horrible last year, and that's very subjective. I might be wrong. I might not know what I'm talking about.
No, I'm with you. But I have White ahead of him too.
Chris Rodriguez took that job over in the end of the year, and I don't think Chris Rodriguez is great either. Dave Kluge's words are resonating in my head, which is that a lot of times in a case like this, you kind of want one of them to go supernova in terms of hype, and suddenly Rachaad White or suddenly JCM is being drafted at in the 5th round or whatever, and then you take the other guy as a bench player. And you don't, it's just an absolute lottery ticket, and you just see and you get rid of it, but it doesn't cost anything. As opposed to, if these guys get up in the 4th or 5th, you start feeling like, ooh, that's a real cost. I don't really want to blow that pick. The Commanders' wide receivers also important. Daniels, granted, the true allure of Jayden Daniels is the running. I just mentioned earlier, I gave him an A+ grade for running still, even after last year's disaster, because he was hurt. But we do need the run. You can't be Anthony Richardson. The running quarterbacks need to be a base level of competence in terms of throwing. And often a base level of confidence means more than one pass target is actually kind of okay for fantasy. Terry McLaurin, I have a sense that probably wherever you have him ranked, usually that's going to be where you have him ranked coming out of training camp. But we'd love to like somebody else there. I assume at the moment you're not ranking anyone like Antonio Williams, the rookie, Chig Okonkwo, my longtime what-if tight end from Tennessee who's now in Washington, Jalen Lane, all these other guys. You're probably not ranking any of those guys either at all or anything but like super late round draftable. Would good camp news on any of the other pass catchers have the chance to elevate anybody?
I don't think so, mostly because, I think the most aggressive I have right now is Okonkwo, and that's only if this team is the same team from opening day, just because, if he gets a bump from the 70 target range to 90 plus, then, a production on the same per target basis, even with the Commanders, that puts him in the back end tight end one conversation. We're always looking for tight ends. Antonio Williams, he's fine. I actually think it's a good fit. I wasn't the biggest Antonio Williams fan, so that might cloud my opinion a little bit, which maybe I need to shift a little bit if he's getting rave reviews the entire time. But I mean, this is a makeshift cast, as makeshift as you can get behind McLaurin, of the resurgence of Treylon Burks, which I put that in major quotes. The quotes are carrying a lot in that aspect. Diami Brown, McCaffrey, Jalen, as you mentioned, Jalen Lane. It's just a mishmash back there where I got it. And it's just pure speculation. I have no basis for this. The only thing that could change is if they sign Stefon Diggs or something like that. And even then, it really comes down to, if you look at 2 years ago, it was Terry McLaurin, but the second leading target getter was Zach Ertz and then Zacchaeus at 64. Even if Daniels throws 520 attempts instead of 480 like he did that year, okay, so he's still a little bit of a tick up from McLaurin, but I feel like the number two, if it's like somebody like Diggs, I think even in that case, or maybe it is Antonio Williams, it's still only a wide receiver 4. And I think that would hurt Okonkwo. I don't think there's going to be 3 super relevant pass catchers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okonkwo can't be somebody you reach for in a standard size draft right now. He's much more a waiver guy to just you're not going to get any proof in August. My God, that's one where if they give the fluff, as much as I want to believe, because I think he's talented, I will not change my Okonkwo rank based on that. I'm with you. I don't imagine changing an Antonio Williams rank. I'm willing to learn about him once we get to September. Absolutely, I'll be open-minded, but I'm not gonna go crazy. The Diggs thing is interesting. I mean, of course, Brandon Ayuk has been trying to legislate his way there forever. I would be way more interested in Diggs than Ayuk at this point. Ayuk just seems unstable.
I thought you were going to say Ayuk was trying to find the best way to throw away millions and end his career in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, kind of same. Yeah, six one, half dozen the other. Diggs would be interesting. Diggs still had something left last year, and they don't have a slot guy, and he very much. We grew real familiar with what Stefon Diggs' routine was with the Patriots last year, and it kind of had a little bit of easy volume behind it. I wouldn't want to get crazy excited for him, but and the moment the good defenses in the playoffs had to say, all right, who can beat us here? We should probably cut down on that Stefon Diggs guy. They were able to. He wasn't beating man coverage out of the slot. Mm-hmm. So, to build your offense around something like that isn't going to work, because when the rubber meets the road, if they need to take you away, they can, because he just doesn't have that anymore. But a lot of 5-yard stops, a lot of it's a 6-catch game for 74 yards and the random chance at a touchdown. That's going to get you into flex territory. Let me close the book on the Commanders by asking you this. We're way down the speculation rabbit hole, but if you got a legit signing, if you got a Diggs to Washington to just balance out that receiving core, I personally don't think that's going to make me lower McLaurin, but I wonder about you.
It wouldn't. I actually think this would be a really nice fit alongside McLaurin. To everything you just said, what was going through my mind is this would actually be better for Diggs to be the number 2 and not asked to be the one who, even as you mentioned with the Patriots, wasn't even on the field for 90% of the snaps towards the end of the year. It's more like that 60%, but it was a very efficient 60%. So Diggs would be in the 40s, a wide receiver 4 for me, but McLaurin pretty much, I have McLaurin at 17 with or without Diggs. I don't see myself moving up or down.
We are sponsored again by Pre-Alcohol from ZBiotics. And You've heard me talk about it. I know you have. They've been with the show for a few years now. You've heard me rave, but maybe you haven't tried pre-alcohol yet because it sounds like, could it really make me feel better than I should the morning after some drinks? I am serious. It does. It's science. Anytime now I'm going to have alcohol, I make pre-alcohol from ZBiotics, my first drink of the night. It's the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It is pretty amazing. It is. It isolates the toxic byproduct in your gut that alcohol creates and just makes it all much better. I have gone through, how many boxes have I been through? 30 times maybe now over these past few years. And you actually don't have to take my word for it. Support a sponsor by trying it out. And if it doesn't work for you, let them know. They will make it right. They have 100% total satisfaction guaranteed. They will give you a refund. The barbecue's coming up, picnics. Your fantasy draft not that far away. Get 15% off at zbiotics.com/Harris and use the code Harris at checkout. 15% off zbiotics.com/Harris. Make sure when you check out, use that code Harris. Okay, we're back with Jake, and we have one more team to get to, and my God, Jake loves this team. He's just such a huge fan of this team, a massive New York Giants fan from way back. Well, that's true, actually. You were a massive fan from way back, but would it be fair to characterize you have weaned yourself slightly from this organization?
I weaned myself significantly, so much so when I was like, hey, you know what? I was always a fan of a lot of the players on the team, and nobody seemingly roots for them, so I'll root for the Texans for a while. I even bought a hat. But I tell you what, with Harbaugh and everything they're doing this offseason, you might as well just put the Corleone quote right in front of me of just when I thought it was out. They're trying. They haven't, but they are trying to put I'll put that word into the quote. They're trying to pull me back in.
All right. Well, the fugitive Giants fan, Jake Ciely, interested in his opinion on this training camp. The first two names we're going to talk about are going to be a little boring to talk about because they're just about injury, but they're significant injuries, and one of them we're worried about, and one of them, hopefully we're rounding the corner. Malik Nabers is the one. Unfortunately, it's just I guess I'll not say unfortunately. Fortunately, with Malik Nabers, it's pretty clear. Either he shocks everybody, and the fact that he had a second knee procedure back in whatever that was, April, means nothing, and he's immediately ready to go, and he's just in all the drills, and his knee is fine, and everything's great. Of course, Malik Nabers would have upward mobility, for me anyway, because I'm baking in some panic over his knee, and then I'll just let you run through all the scenarios, like the downside of he never participates in training camp. He probably needs to go lower.
Yeah, I am a 26, and that's basically my way of telling everybody that unless he's your wide receiver 3, I don't want to take that risk. Maybe, your makeup of your roster, whatever, he's your 2 and things. You get the point there. Not you, everybody listening, understand where I'm trying to come from there is that I don't want to take that risk as of today because, it was supposedly they didn't do a great job the first time around, and the second was more of a cleanup and make sure we get things right. And no, my wife, Nicole, is not an NFL player, but she's had similar situations with her ankle, and it wasn't like, oh, that second one, now it's 100%. That's all that I needed. Like, you still have all that recovery. And everybody references the film we watch him play in the softball game where it looks like he's running on 1.5 legs. And there's time to get back to 100%. But we're nearing the mid-end of July, and we haven't seen him on the field. We haven't seen him play. We haven't seen super positive. And this is the time of the year where everybody everybody's ready for week 1. Patrick Mahomes, George Kittle, everybody. Like, Zach Charbonnet might play this year. And then everybody's like, Malik Nabers, I don't know. Like, that's a lot that usually everybody wants to wax poetically about how good everybody looks at this time of the season. So I have him at 26. If he's out there and he plays some preseason games and he's looking healthy, I will obviously move him up. But if, like you just said, the worst case scenario is we don't see him until week 1 and then he starts the year on the injury of a pup, like, I would move him even further down. Like, I think there is downward trajectory possible too.
Agreed. I have him exactly 26 in a standard. I have him 27 in a PPR. It's funny.
Yeah.
I didn't look at your ranks, but it's a placeholder rank. And if we get amazing news, he can get up. Wide receiver stinks. Wide receiver's unbelievably flat. He could get up to 10 Of course he could. He could get up to 10. I'm not even looking at my list. I'm telling you right now, knowing what it's like at 10, he could get up to 10 if everything was perfect. But, I mean, I don't think we're expecting everything is perfect. How low could he go? Would he just be 40 and like, just let somebody else get him?
40, I think I would take the gamble because once you're talking 40, you're talking, at least for me, you're talking like
Mid-season
the Michael
replacement.
Wilsons.
Yeah,
like you're probably waiver wire, and at that point, I'll take the upshot chance, especially when you consider where 40 is going overall in your draft and how many. I mean, now we're talking about 25% hit rate, so I'll take that gamble that late.
Yeah, agreed. And then the other injury guy for the Giants is the particle accelerator, Cam Skattebo. That's his nickname around here. He had a. That's a good one. I didn't come up with that
I had
one.
heard you say that one before. I love that one.
Yeah, I don't think I came up with that one. I can't remember. That was this winter, but I think it was a listener. I apologize for not remembering who. So Cam Skattebo, his leg injury was awful, but we're told he it's like you said with the Kittles and the Mahomes and stuff. He's on the optimistic side. Until he gets out there, everybody's saying nice things, and he's saying everything's going to be okay. I guess let's ask the same question. Let's just say, all right, if he's full bore, Skattebo, do you raise him or do you kind of have him at his max right now? And if he's not, obviously, I think you lower him and then you start looking at Tyrone Tracy a little bit.
Yeah, so right now I'm at 21. I could see moving him up probably 2 spots, but that would be about it. And that's because I am leaning a little bit more positively than I expected to be at this point, just because of all the reports we actually have seen some of his workouts or whatever you want to call them at this point. But there is a lot of, hey, we're like surprising he's young enough that the knees already, or that leg's already looking good. And so, 21 to get him to 19, cool. I think there's more potential downward trajectory, to use that again with Nabers, than there is upward at this point, mostly because even as positively everything sounds, I think we have to also acknowledge what this team is. And I've referenced this a couple times, and I know you know this, Chris, is that people, I think, are overlooking the fact that he brought in Harbaugh, brought in Roman too, and that Roman is going to do what he does, focus on the run game. He stinks in the passing game. We know that Nagy, good passing game, stinks in the run game. I actually think it's a perfect marriage, but we also need to acknowledge what that likely means, and that's not somebody getting 75% of the work throughout their history, what we know about them. So I'm leaning into that assumption as well, where I present all it to say is like, and I could be wrong by this, I don't see him moving much further in my ranks, even if he looks amazing, because I don't see him getting into the, Marion Hampton, Breece Hall, Kyron Williams realm of like top 16. I think 19 might be about it. So if we don't get a lot of positive talk and like he isn't ready for game 1 of the preseason or game 2 and game 3, and he's only practicing, not playing, I think there's more potential for him to fall than rise.
Yeah, I think so too. More potential to fall than rise based on health, based on rehab. Probably not based on, wow, we didn't expect to see Tyrone Tracy running with the one so much. Like, that's just going to happen. That's just the NFL.
Yeah,
there's just
right.
Not that many guys who do 75% of their backfields anymore. There's 3 or 4 every year. So you don't need Skattebo to be that in order to draft him to be your RB2.
Right.
I think it's funny. I did Kluge's show a month ago or something like that, and he was all over Tracy. And I don't know. I don't look at ADP, so I'm sure that's partly about price. It's not that I don't think Dave is saying, secretly, I suspect Tracy is a better player than Skattebo. I think he's probably saying, secretly, I think people are falling in love with Skattebo because he's fun and not realizing that this has a chance to be, a 50-50 type arrangement, plus one of the guys is a contact-seeking missile who tries to plow his chest through everybody's, his head through everybody's chest, and is a good bet to get concussed again. And I want the other guy. And to me, I don't think training camp's going to tell us really anything about that. But that is not. When Dave said that, I was like, I think I'm going to file that away because that's not terrible logic.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Dave's saying, and I've been on the same. As I mentioned, I have him almost inside my top 20, but Tracy's in my 40s because of all the potential backups. Yeah, and there's not I would not call the Giants offense a top 5 or top 10. Maybe if they surprise and get the top 10, but I want to call them that to say I'm attacking this backup running back because if anything happened to it, this isn't Blake Corum, who actually does get a little bit of share, but you understand my point, is that this isn't Corum behind Kyron Williams, where it's like, oh my God, whoever it is, probably to the moon for top 12. It just comes down to, okay, Skattebo gets hurt. Who are they turning to? It's not going to be Eric Gray, who might not even be on the roster. It's not going to be Devin Singletary. This Tyron Tracy is going to get his 60%. And in that case, like you just said, how many running backs even get 60% at this point? So that's really what it is. The value for Tracy is just terrific.
Yeah, good value in the later rounds. Even if you don't take Skattebo as a bench guy, see how it goes. This is even independent of Skattebo's performance in training camp, which you and I are probably on the same page. We're both basing our rank on an optimistic health result, and then probably beyond health, really for everybody there's not a lot of we're going to take away from day by day, like who look good in drills kind of stuff. Although that might not be true, because I'll end it on this, the tight ends, because Theo Johnson, I mean, he played like a knucklehead last year. He was a wild man. He played kind of well. He looked like he came into the league out of Penn State, like looking like a really good athlete. He killed his combine. He made some splash plays. He also made some really stupid plays. He's a really good blocker, it turned out. And then it felt like they were kind of set. And then Harbaugh comes in and is like, I'm going to give Isaiah Likely a whole bunch of money. I have Likely way ahead of Theo Johnson, clearly. That's where they spent their money. I'm going to kind of defer to that until I'm proven otherwise. But I personally don't have, I have Likely 14 among tight ends. I don't have him inside the top 12. I don't know where you have him, but I wonder whether anything can happen to change the way you're viewing that balance between those two guys in August.
Not really, mostly because I am more aggressive on Likely. I actually have him inside my top 12, mostly because, and again, this is my projecting out. Like, I don't know. Sure. We talk about this on your show all the time, but feeling of Nagy and going back to like even when he had Cole Kmet with the Bears is I do get a feel that we might see what we wanted from the Ravens. And I know there's that question of like, all right, Harbaugh, you brought over Likely, but why did you never use him all the time when he was with the Ravens? And people point to that a lot. And it's like, circumstances, whatever it might be, like, we don't know. He's not going to tell us, like, this is exactly why. But at the same time, look at Nagy, who, generally has leaned on a lead tight end. It's not that he never uses a two tight end. And we know the NFL is moving a lot to that. So I don't think Theo Johnson's going by the wayside. I just could see a scenario, and it ties into Nabers, where Likely could be the one or the two in targets just because of necessity and design on this team. So for that case, I have him as a back end tight end one right there behind Pitts alongside like a Kelsey Ferguson range. But this is one where I'm not going to turn a blind eye if it's a ton of tight end two sets. And it seems that Likely's role is going to be similar to the Ravens, but just a little bit of an increase where it's like, you know what? There is no chance that he's going to get inside that top one or two for targets on the team. Then I would move him down. So I feel like this is another one where, similar to earlier in the show, I have him probably at my peak level. Like, I can't see myself. I'm not going to move him in front of Laporta or Fannin or Kittle. So he's probably as high as he's going to go, where his only potential is to slide back in my ranks depending on what we hear or see from the team in the preseason.
Yeah, so basically, I don't think he has much mobility for me at all because I've already got that a little bit baked in. But I understand where you're coming from, whereas, I kind of already have him where you would move him back to if you get what you feel to be somewhat negative news, which is, I think that news is likeliest to be, I think Theo Johnson becomes more the blocking tight end. He's just better at it than Likely. Likely is really a slot receiver. Johnson is more of he's a fast guy, but he had a good blocking year last year from what I could see on tape anyway. So I understand where you're coming from, that if you get to that feeling of like, well, a lot of the deception gets taken away, and Likely is kind of like, people have been saying about Evan Engram from last year. He was like the passing tell. When he was on the field, defenses knew you were going to throw. If that becomes Likely, you don't want that. You want some possible misdirection and less predictability out of it. So, interesting. All right, brother. Well, very good. Thank you for helping me think through these training camp topics. It seems like we came out with a couple of scenarios we want to pay really close attention to that not injury related. Makai Lemon, we talked about. The whole Washington backfield, certainly big one to be paying attention to. You can find Jake all over social media, wherever you are. He is. Look up All In Kid or his name, Jake Ciely. Subscribe to the All In Speed Run. Just do it right now. They're bite-sized episodes. I love listening to them. Was on hiatus, back now. The All In Speed Run, and of course, find Jake's great work at The Athletic as well. thank you, my friend. I appreciate you doing this for the 103rd consecutive year. And we'll have you back in August, and we'll talk about some other fun training camp topics.
And I hopefully will be doing it in the 120th year. Keep it going.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank today's sponsors, because without the sponsors, there would have been no show. We had Blueland, Fitbod, and Zbiotics. If you were interested in anything I had to say about today's sponsors, you can find their links and information and deals and stuff in today's show notes. All of the current sponsors are listed at harrisfootball.com. If you have the means, if you have a need, if you'd like to support the show, wonderful way to do it. That's how the whole thing happens. That's how they keep coming back if you pick a sponsor. If you don't currently have the means, I'm so lucky and happy to have you listening. Please don't give it a second thought. I appreciate you so very much. That will do it for this Tuesday episode, and we will be back again on Friday for more training camp previews. The gentleman who will join us on Friday, I think you know his voice.
Christopher Harris, it's me.
That little sound bit there, I just checked the date created, 2016. So I'm holding this little tiny bit of Pat Doherty hostage for the last 10 years, his little sliver, his voice that I used against him. But it will be Pat Doherty of Roto World joining the show. We're going to preview the training camps for the teams of the AFC East, which should be a great blast as well. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you on Friday.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.
Say yes. Say yes.